Composition, as you heard in the lecture, is the arrangement of elements on a page. It's a fundamental cornerstone of page design. When you're thinking about the composition of a page, website, poster, or anything for that matter, it's generally a good idea to start with a wireframe, which is actually what you'll be building for one of the assignments this week. Wireframes are representations focused solely on the composition of a design. It strips everything else away. Wireframes take a completely blank canvas and divide it into smaller spaces meant to emphasize important elements, direct attention, or categorize. They can range from minimalistic to immensely complex. Let's go ahead and start by looking at some website wireframes. These are fairly basic, and it gives you an idea about functionally what a wireframe does. My guess is that you'll be able to guess some of these websites just by seeing their wireframes, which can be a little bit fun as well. So take a look. I expect most of you can recognize this wireframe without me revealing anything from this site. It's a very simple wireframe. We have a top menu bar, information in a smaller section that's aligned up with 3 columns in the middle of the page, and 1 column to the far right of the page. So in this website we have our content organized into these 3 columns to make it easy for us to follow, and those columns are also determined based on what kind of content goes in them. So if I turn off some of these layers here, you'll be able to see what this website is. And unsurprisingly, it's Facebook. So that same wireframe that I just showed you is very much true here. We have a top menu bar with some limited information, a few functional buttons, and a search bar. We have a left column with all the groups that we're in, all sorts of different organizations that we're affiliated with within Facebook. In the middle, we have our news feed that has all of our Facebook friends' posts. On the right, we have trending as well as birthdays and other events, and there's usually some ads here as well. And then to the far right, we have a list of all of our friends for chat. Let's take a look at another one. You guys may recognize this one as well. Probably not quite as widely known as the Facebook wireframe, but it's very similar and functionally has a lot of the same effect, right? So this is the Twitter wireframe, and once again at the top here, if I move some things around, you'll be able to see that we have the same idea of this top menu bar with a search bar and some minor functionality, and then in the left-hand area here we get information about who we are, as well as a field to enter a new post into Twitter. Underneath that we have our trending items, and off to the right we have suggestions of who to follow. Underneath that, some Twitter copyright information, and then in the middle is our primary Twitter news feed. It's very similar to Facebook, and actually when when Twitter came out, Facebook changed a lot of their layout to make it mirror Twitter to an extent. Let's take a look at one more website to give you an idea of what these very simple wireframes look like and how they're used to arrange content. This last one is for a tech company. You probably recognize it if you're at all familiar with the company. This is the Apple website wireframe, and theirs is very much content driven. The wireframe exists purely as a means to organize the content, but everything on the page is photographs. So if I turn some of these off, you'll be able to see what is on the page. Oops. Alright, so there you can see we have our primary image, drawing lots of focus, making that the largest piece on the page, and then underneath we have these smaller sections that are also little, like, minor features. But it's very much this simplistic idea, letting that one big element take the forefront in the composition. And then again, a menu bar at the top. This is a really common thing, is to have navigation at the top of the page, and you guys should all take note of that for when you're building your own sites. Let's take a look at just a couple more, a bit more interesting composition design choices, in my opinion. This is a wireframe for a comic book, and you can actually see a lot of the momentum, the forward motion in the way the lines are organized, and I'll go ahead and show you what this filled-in page looks like so you can see that momentum at work in the imagery itself. The final image on the page looked like this, and you can see how that composition plays a role in building that momentum and keeping motion in the page, both in terms of the action and the design of what's happening on it. And one more comic book page here, this one a vertical page. And this one, I think, is really interesting because the wireframe has this very large central focus, and all of the lines around it are all pointing right into it. So you get a lot of this main focus being right here idea. All of these wireframe lines are just leading your eye right to this large center area for some big central piece. And in this particular one, it's this lady writing a letter, and around it shows some of the text of that letter. So here is the main focus of the page, and all of the composition choices support that being the main focus. So now that you guys have seen what a wireframe is and what it looks like, what it functions as, I'm hoping that you guys can take a look at some websites that you like and look at how they arrange different elements on their pages, what kind of navigational pieces they have, what kind of components are found in lots of websites. Look at those conventions. They're going to be your friends as you work on your websites. The more conventions that you can include in your site, the easier it's going to be for people to use. And we'll talk more about that later. But when you build this website, keep in mind that when you create divs in your HTML, you're creating rectangles. So a lot of times rectangles are going to be a basic fundamental shape as you're building these. Keep that in mind. And this should also help guide you as you go about building your HTML in deciding which divs belong where and how you embed one div within another to create these different wireframe shapes. So go ahead and work on your wireframe for right now. Later in the semester, we'll build the wireframe in HTML and convert it into a website. If you have any questions about the assignment, feel free to shoot me a message, as always, and good luck.